Happy Halloween! In the New York City borough of the Bronx, a group of kids are fighting to save their neighborhood from being bought up by a mysterious real estate developer. But when people start to go missing, they soon realize that something far more nefarious is at work. Vampires. It's vampires. Vampires are swooping in and buying up all this real estate and sucking the soul out of the neighborhood. It's an on-the-nose metaphor for gentrification. And that's basically it. Kids living in the Bronx fighting vampires. I should like this movie. Just diving into it, it seems the filmmakers wanted to make a kids in peril movie, much like The Goonies or The Monster Squad, or more recently with Stranger Things. You've got your main hero kid, his best friend, who's also doubling as the troublemaker. You have the nerd archetype, the love interest, and the disbelieving parents. The performances are serviceable, if a bit amateur, which I guess is to be expected with a lower budget independent film. There are a few notable faces that pop up. Zoe Saldana plays a nail salon owner. Method Man plays a Catholic priest. And Shea Whigham plays the vampire's familiar. It hits all the beats of those movies that it's trying to emulate, and it doesn't waste any time, which I appreciate. The plot doesn't lose any momentum. But the problem is I never really feared for these kids' safety. There are moments that were almost great, but they stopped just short of it and landed in just sort of decent territory. Every now and then there's a glimmer of style that kind of peeks through, and it would make me lean forward, but it would dissipate moments later. And see, that's disappointing because this is a movie that really could use more style, especially it being a low-budget vampire movie. And here's the thing about vampires. Everybody knows the basics. Everybody knows that they drink blood, that they burn in sunlight, that they're allergic to garlic, that crucifixes ward them away, and that you kill them by stabbing them in the heart with a stake. They're so ingrained in the popular culture that everybody knows how to deal with a vampire. So in order to make your vampire movie more interesting, you either need to get creative with the visuals, or you need to turn the vampire mythos on its head. But they don't do that with the vampires in this movie. These guys are your typical black leather clad, hot topic shopping, pale-faced goths that anybody with an inkling of vampire knowledge would point at them and say, "Those motherfuckers look like vampires." They're slinking around acting like they're the undead. They are being unnecessarily conspicuous. See, in both versions of the Fright Night movies, the character of Jerry Dandridge just looks like a really handsome guy. He's not walking around like he's Dracula. It's only when you piss him off that he starts to look really vampiric. And against my better judgment, I'm going to defend the Twilight movies for a little bit. Changing the specific reason vampires avoid the sun is an interesting approach, especially when you consider their shiny skin being used as a predatory advantage, like an anglerfish luring in prey. Look, the movie's still bad and the books are not good, but at least Stephenie Meyer was trying something different. And that's what this movie needed, something different, something to set it apart from other movies like it, something aside from the cast and the setting. They wanted that classic 80s horror comedy vibe, so much so that there's a scene that I feel like the filmmakers would argue is an homage to The Lost Boys, but in reality it's just a blatant ripoff. And there is a difference. There's an obvious twist that they set up at the beginning that when I saw it, it was so obvious that I was like, oh, that's a red herring. Surely that's not the twist. But then they did it. Look, I don't mean to dog on it. It's hard to make a movie. It's even harder to make a good movie. So when you have a cast and crew that put all this time and effort into something that ends up being mediocre, I get that it can be a little bit disheartening. So should you watch this movie? Man, hell no. Honestly, I really wanted to like it, but I can't in good conscience recommend it to anybody. If you want to watch a movie that's kind of similar, but more creative, watch Attack the Block. It's a small-scale alien invasion movie with interesting characters, simple but striking creature design, and it's a far sight better than Vampires vs. the Bronx.